Begin incident report. Subject, Dustin Michaels, A367. Status, deceased. Cause of death, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the temple. This first-hand account with Anomaly 0128 was taken from the subject's social media page. This account seems to reference the creature being associated with local energy disturbances and disappearance of other subjects within the area. Subject's account. To preface my account with a cryptid hiding in the woods of the Northwest, hundreds of men, women, and children go missing each year out here. The state tries to cover it up nowadays. Things like this poor old man must have fallen and couldn't make his way to safety, or she must have encountered a mountain lion, but I never bought it. I mean, there were never any bodies found for the majority of these cases, right? Nonetheless, I'm a go-getter kind of guy, so 2 weeks ago, on the dot, as I'm writing this, I packed up my clothes, food, tent, and a gun, and made a beeline for the cluster of hot spots in some secluded area of the Cascade Mountain Range. Driving from Everett down Highway 2 towards the Stevens Pass sort of area, and turning off on some back road, ate up about 2 hours or so, but it was worth it. This place was beautiful. A cool fall midday breeze, a shallow stream running down the mountainside, a canopy of orange leaves and green pines overhead, with a small trail leading into the depths of the woods just ahead of my car. I sat there for a moment of silence, just taking in the scenery before hopping out of my SUV, walking around back to grab my backpack and Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun loaded with lead slugs. The scenery may be pretty, but I wasn't about to forget the dozens of people that vanished into thin air here. Loaded down with my shotgun, sufficient ammunition, food, and supplies, I trudged on into the trailhead, passing a missing person sign stapled to a tree at the entrance. The trip took a solid hour of walking to make my way to the hot spot. The spot was just as beautiful as the trailhead, if not more so. The same stream followed the path along its length. The tree canopy was thick here, but the light that did make it through formed stunning rays of light. I went ahead and took the pack off my back to set up camp when a chill ran down my spine, and an uneasy feeling presented itself in the forefront of my mind. I took a second to double-check my surroundings, and yet found nothing of note. I continued to set up my tent, sleeping bag, and campfire to my liking before slipping into the sleeping bag and zipping up the tent for a quick nap before nightfall. I awoke approximately 4 hours later at 7 p.m. to my alarm chiming on my phone as the sun was quickly setting. I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, popped an earbud in, and turned up my Spotify playlist of West Coast gangster rap to hype me up some before grabbing my 12-gauge and racking it one-handed like some cheesy action hero. I powered up my cheap, low-res thermal camera and slid it onto the rail of my shotgun, then set off on some random direction of the woods, making absolutely sure I left a trail of occasional glow sticks behind me. I trudged through the ferns and stickers for hours. 3, 4, maybe even 5, who knows. What I do know is that everything seemed to blur together out there after dark, like space and time was manipulated to become this messy ball of disorientation. That was of course until I heard something that pierced me to my very core and woke me from my trance-like state. It's so hard to describe. It was like a haunting whistle mixed with a blood-curdling scream, followed by a low groan like something out of Predator. I did my best to keep calm and continue moving with the business end of my 12-gauge towards the origin of the noise in case it turned out to be a mountain lion. Catching a strangely cold spot behind a tree on the thermal camera, paired with the thought of the sound in question not sounding anything like the Northwest wildlife local to that area, made me shudder with fear. I did my best to muster the strongest fuck off that I could, but it still came out shaky and echoed on into the silent night. I watched as the cold spot behind the tree moved into the open towards me. I could make out some kind of humanoid shape. My adrenaline spiked as I reached for the flashlight strapped to the side of the pump on my gun and switched it on. My heart dropped as I revealed an 8-foot-tall, lanky, cloaked figure. I could make out that it had a wrinkled face and large black holes where the eyes and mouth should have been. At the ends of its arms were foot-long, spear-like fingers with what looked to be rotted biological matter stuck to them. This biomatter seemed to be all over its cloak as well, and it smelled like death, as if it just pulled a Dahmer on some poor old fool. That was it for me. There was no way I was hanging out there and finding out if the haunting eldritch horror demon wanted a Capri Sun or if it wanted to Capri Sun me. After an audible "fuck that," I turned on my heels and started dipping like an Olympian track star. No matter how fast or how far I ran, it seemed to keep up all the while making those bone-chilling whistling screams. My asthma told me I'm too old for this, while my mind kept screaming, "Don't die, idiot," while my legs continued to sprint full speed, hurtling over logs and stickers until they burned like hell itself. I had to face the fact that I was no athlete. I'd end up passed out from lack of oxygen if I went any further, then I'd surely be dead. So I backed myself up to a tall cliff with water at the bottom and raised the gun up once more. It took me a moment of desperation and fear to spot the damn thing, looming behind another tree, braced the stock against my shoulder and let a slug fly. It skimmed the side of the pine tree, blowing wood chips into the face of the creature. The round hit the thing in its shoulder. The sound of a shot echoing off the mountains while the creature deafeningly screamed once more created the most surreal atmosphere. This thing began to thunderously charge at me on all fours like a chimp with rabies. I racked my 12 gauge and fired again and again. Each shot hit and took a chunk out of it, but none of them seemed to do much. Quick thinking forced me off the cliff behind me and into the water 50 to 60 feet below. I hit the water like a ton of bricks. I felt the pain in every joint as I made out which way was up and swam for it. Shaking from the cold and the adrenaline, I slowly made my way to the shore and pulled myself onto the land like a tired seal. After lying on my back with a waterlogged shotgun at my side for a moment to try and catch my breath, I begrudgingly stood up and checked my equipment. As expected, my thermal camera was absolutely bricked, but my flashlight seemed to be okay for now. My clothes were useless from being absolutely waterlogged, so I took off my shirt and ditched it. I flicked the flashlight on and got my gun up. I had, count 'em, 2 shots left. It took another 2 hours or so circling back around the lake, through the undergrowth to even find the glow stick trail, let alone make it back to camp. Too much had gone on that night for me to even give a damn about my tent, so I continued on to my car. I'm unsure if it's related to the creature or maybe a bear got to my car, but there were large scratch marks and dents down the entire length of my vehicle. The whole car ride home felt like ages, and I kept thinking I was seeing that demonic-looking thing on the side of the highway. As a matter of fact, I've been seeing it everywhere. When I go to buy groceries or go to work, it's even been outside of my house a few times, just sitting there whistling like it's taunting me. I send this out as a tale of the Taker, a keeper of the lost. I also sit here before you today crying out for help. Every time I close my eyes nowadays, I see that damn thing. And even if I get sleep, I wake up screaming bloody murder. All I can think of when I go out now is how long until I'm brutally eaten alive. Update. I'm unsure who they are, but some men in black military gear showed up to my house today and questioned me about what I saw a few nights ago. I'm unsure as to how they knew I was in the woods or how they found out where I lived. They mentioned something about energy anomalies causing hallucinations or some BS. They seemed to allude to me not talking about the situation unless I want to disappear, so keep an eye on me, I guess. Update. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I've lost all of my privacy and sanity. The government is watching me while this thing taunts me, and I'm hopeless to stop any of it. Part of me is starting to wonder what lead tastes like, if you catch my drift. Anomaly-0128 profile. Classification: deadly. Anomaly-0128 is roughly 8 feet tall, pale, with wrinkled, rubber-like skin, long, spear-like fingers, and a tattered brown cloak. 0128 has a void in place of its mouth and eyes. 0128 has no nose or ears that can be observed. 0128 has been observed emitting a unique whistling, screaming type of intimidation cry during its hunting sessions. It's believed that 0128 alters the minds of its victims with a yet undiscovered type of ionizing radiation that causes vertigo, disorientation, loss of time, hallucinations, and psychoactive breakdowns, perhaps emitted during its cries? Maybe. Most subjects, even after escaping 0128's grasp, fall to suicidal tendencies. If escape is not achieved, 0128 commonly consumes the victim whole. It's unknown how 0128 consumes bone without breaking or chewing said material. 0128 also has not been observed defecating, as said anomaly seems to become unobservable when not on the hunt, perhaps interdimensional of some kind. Anomaly 0128 has been observed throughout the Cascade Mountain Range from Oregon to further north into Washington State. It was later brought to light via the cooperation between the American ARA, Anomaly Response Agency, and the Canadian UPC, Unidentified Phenomena Coalition, that 0128 has been observed as far north as the Yukon Territory. In total, it is believed that 0128 is responsible for the death and or disappearance of at least 1,500 individuals between the U.S. and Canadian territory in the last decade alone. 0128 is deadly and should be treated as such. September 2nd, 2022. Subject interview. Time, 21:27. Subject claims to have been seeing Anomaly 0128 in accordance with local energy disturbances before repeated hallucinations of said anomaly during psychoactive breakdowns. Anomaly 0128 seems to be immune or resistant to traditional projectile ballistic ammunition. 0128 also seems to emit a cold signature on thermal, rather than the usual hot. Note taken. Subject update. Subject A367 failed to cope with the after effects and took their own life using a .45 caliber handgun. MRI attempts were inconclusive due to the wind location. However, it's believed due to the similarity of the symptoms that Michael's experienced that he experienced the same after effects as many other subjects due to an alteration in the region of the brain that handles sight. Clearly, more research is needed. Anomaly Response Unit dispatched to the last known sighting location to investigate once more. End report. If you liked the video, remember to like and subscribe. And remember, watch your back.